Hey guys, tonight we slip our boots into cracked stirrups, sway inside a dusty stagecoach, and rattle across the bone-dry heart of the Wild West. You're not some seasoned gunslinger, either. You're just you, modern, maybe still nursing that oat milk latte from this morning. But now, the air smells like horse sweat and gunpowder, your boots pinch, and, spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I always love seeing how far this little bedtime posse travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins before dawn. You wake up to a hard jolt as the stagecoach lurches over a jagged rut. Your neck's sore, your mouth's dry, and there's a faint copper taste, maybe dust, maybe dread. Outside, the sky's still black, just starting to pale at the edges, like someone lightly dragging a brush through soot. The horses snort and puff little clouds into the crisp morning air. You're bundled in a heavy wool coat that smells like wet dog and tobacco, and someone near you just coughed up something that sounded important. The coach driver, somewhere up front behind a sheet of frosty glass, yells something unintelligible to the horses. The wheels creak louder with every mile, like they're announcing your regrets out loud. The other passengers? One's asleep with his mouth open, and the other's cleaning his nails with what might be a prison shiv. The Wild West doesn't welcome you. It swallows you. Eventually, the coach halts with a groan outside a frontier town that's little more than 4 buildings, a sagging hitching post, and a sign hanging by one rusty chain that reads perdition in peeling red paint. Charming. You step out and instantly regret it. The ground crunches like cornflakes beneath your boots, and the air slices through your jacket. And right on cue, a rooster screams at you like it knows you're an imposter. Historians still argue whether stagecoach routes were safer than simply walking. Some claim the threat of bandits made walking suicidal, while others say the coaches were mobile coffins anyway. Between broken axles, runaway horses, and cholera, pick your poison. You're starting to get the picture. The sun creeps up reluctantly behind the hills. It's gold, yes, but not the happy gold of cozy sunrises. This gold is harsh. It glares. It finds your pores and judges your SPF-less skin. Spoiler, you forgot sunscreen, and it's 1873. The closest thing to sun protection is a wide-brim hat or smearing yourself with mud, or if you're feeling adventurous, crushed aloe and bear grease. One explorer even used crocodile dung, don't ask. As you shuffle toward town, you realize something important. There are no sidewalks, just packed dirt laced with whatever the horses had for dinner. Your boots sink slightly with each step, and the crunch underfoot gets spongier. You try not to think about it, and then the smell hits. It's a mix of manure, sweat, kerosene, and something medicinal, maybe turpentine or death depending on the wind. Back then, cities didn't have sewer systems. Most folks tossed their waste of every kind right into the street. That polite puddle by your boot, probably not rainwater. A shopkeeper unlocks his storefront, giving you a long, squinted stare. He's got no teeth, a scar across one cheek, and zero interest in helping you not die here. This isn't customer service country. You hear a bell jangle behind you. A skinny boy in suspenders drags a crate across the dusty road, struggling under the weight. You try to help him. He flinches. Ain't mine. He mumbles and bolts. You glance back toward the coach. It's gone. So, welcome to perdition. No map. No friends. No idea what comes next. A poster tacked to a nearby pole catches your eye. Wanted dead or alive. The sketch looks vaguely like you if you were hit with a shovel and forgot how to smile. $10 reward. In gold. Tempting. A man spits near your foot. You knew? He asks, voice rough as sandpaper and bourbon. You nod a little too quickly. He snorts. Don't blink too long. This town's got more ghosts than folks. There's a beat where you both stand there, listening to the wind whistle between buildings. In the distance, a coyote howls. Or maybe it laughs. You're not sure if you're cold from the morning air or just the growing realization you're not in Kansas or anywhere survivable anymore. A bell rings again. This time, it's the Undertaker. He's wheeling out an empty pine box and setting it near the porch. Just in case. The sun's barely up, but perdition is already humming, or maybe growling. You walk further down the dirt path that dares to call itself Main Street, and the place comes into sharper focus. It's not much to look at. A leaning general store, a blacksmith's barn coughing up smoke, a saloon barely standing upright with a set of swinging doors flapping in the wind like a lazy invitation to disaster. And then the sound. Sharp, sudden bang. You freeze. Your heart jumps, doing cartwheels behind your ribs. You turn toward the source just in time to see a man in a battered hat calmly holster his revolver outside the barbershop. He doesn't run. He doesn't explain. He just tips his hat at the body, slumped over in the dirt like it owed him money. No one screams. No one panics. One kid steps around the corpse like it's a puddle and keeps eating an apple. You're definitely not in suburbia. Historians still argue whether the wild in Wild West is overblown, a Hollywood invention. But when a stranger gets gunned down before breakfast and the only response is someone muttering, "Shoulda known better," it's safe to say this place earned the title. You sidestep the body, which is already drawing flies like a social event. A local woman sweeps her porch nearby, casually, as if cleaning up after a murder is just part of the morning routine. Your instincts scream at you to get inside somewhere, anywhere, and as if summoned by fear itself, the saloon door creaks again. You duck inside, hoping for safety or at least something potable. But outside, gunfire hasn't stopped. There's a second shot, then a third. This time, it's not an execution, it's a duel. Two men squaring off in the middle of the street, back to back, taking paces like it's a poorly rehearsed play. Then, one of them yells, spinning faster than physics allows. Crack. One collapses. The other stands still, blowing smoke from his barrel like he's in a dime novel. Someone claps. That's it. One man dead, one man relieved, and you, standing slack-jawed in the shadow of the swinging saloon doors. Inside the saloon, it's no safer. A piano player keeps hammering out a jaunty, slightly off-key tune, despite the chaos outside. The crowd, rough men with twitchy hands and eyes that is seen too much, barely glances up. You spot the bartender, who resembles a boiled potato in suspenders. He nods once. "You look new," he says. "Drink." You nod, because words seem to have left you for the moment. He slides a glass your way. The liquid inside is amber. Could be whiskey, could be something flammable. You sniff it. Yep, definitely flammable. Fun historical fact. Saloon booze was often homemade, or worse, relabeled. Some barkeeps mixed with alcohol, turpentine, or even snake venom into their drinks to stretch the bottle and add kick. And you just took a sip. Your throat feels like someone lit a match in it. Your stomach may never forgive you. As you recover from your near-death-by liquor, you notice the other patrons. One man wears spurs that click even while seated. Another is nursing a bandaged hand and eyeing you like you're the reason for both. At a nearby table, two gamblers argue over a card game. The deck looks greasy and possibly marked. One accuses the other of cheating. Voices rise. Someone slams a hand on the table. A third man, a shadowy type who's been watching this unfold with the enthusiasm of a cat eyeing birds, casually lays his hand on a revolver. Just a warning. Tension simmers, but no one dies this time. Not yet. You edge toward a seat, trying to look like you belong here. You don't. You look like someone who says password when logging onto their email and apologizes to vending machines. You feel it too. Suddenly, a cold hand grabs your wrist. You nearly jump out of your skin. It's a woman, mid-30s, wide-brimmed hat, eyes like worn leather. "Watch yourself," she says flatly. They shoot new folk just for blinking wrong. She lets go, disappears into the crowd like smoke, and you're left staring at your trembling hand. Fringe historical tidbit. There were towns so lawless that shoot on sight was a common form of greeting. One Arizona mining camp had a population of 100 men and 63 recorded murders in just over a year. Authorities refused a ride, and unless the killings dropped to just Saturdays. Outside, you hear shouting. A man's voice, desperate, angry. You lean toward the saloon door and peek out. It's the man who won the duel earlier. Now, He's yelling at a marshal. You can't hear every word, but self-defense and no witnesses seem to come up a lot. The marshal listens, spits, then walks away. Just like that. Justice served cold, and possibly with a bribe. A piano key breaks. No one notices. Back at the bar, the bartender slides a plate toward you. Breakfast, he grunts. You look down. It's hardtack, a brick of ancient flour and salt so dense it might qualify as a building material. A side of beans, grayish and suspicious. One strip of something that might once have been bacon. Or bark. You bite in. Immediate regret. Hardtack was infamous for being inedible unless soaked in something strong enough to erode metal. Soldiers used to call it molar breakers. You're suddenly grateful for the whiskey-turpentine combo. It might actually make this chewable. As you sit chewing what feels like punishment, the doors bang open again. A man stumbles in with blood on his shirt. Not his, apparently, and collapses on the floor with a loud thud. No one reacts, except the bartender, who sighs and mutters, "Third this week." You're still halfway through your hardtack. Your stomach groans in protest. So far, your day has included public executions, mystery meat, semi-poisonous whiskey, and exactly 0 restrooms. You stand up. You need air, or answers, or possibly a time machine. Instead, the saloon doors creak again, and this time, people do react. Everyone goes silent. A man walks in slow. Spurs echo. A black hat shades his face. He's looking right at you. You try not to blink, or breathe, or exist too loudly. The man in the doorway stares with the kind of calm that makes people uneasy. His boots are polished enough to reflect your panic, and his black duster swings with every step like it knows something you don't. You instinctively reach for your pockets, even though they contain nothing but lint, a paperclip, and a slow-growing sense of dread. He walks toward the bar without looking away from you. New face. He mutters, more to the room than to you. The bartender gives a subtle shrug and starts drying a glass that hasn't been wet since the Mexican-American War. Then, just as suddenly, the stranger loses interest. He turns toward a different man, one of the gamblers, and cold cocks him so hard the man folds like a badly dealt hand. Nobody flinches. One guy quietly re-raises his poker bet. You take this moment to make your exit because nothing screams survive the day like removing yourself from punching distance. Outside, it's brighter now. Harsh, flat light that turns the whole town into a bleached photograph. Heat rises off the dirt road in shimmering ripples, and you instinctively squint like a cliche, cowboy minus all usefulness. You need water. Real water. Not booze, not bean juice, not whatever that liquid in the horse trough was. A sign says general store. Perfect. Inside, it's cooler but just as disorienting. Shelves are lined with rusting cans, boxes of something powdered, and tools that look more like torture instruments than anything helpful. Behind the counter stands a woman with steel gray hair and a demeanor that says, "I've buried 3 husbands and a deputy. Ask me how." You manage a polite nod. Water. She lifts a jug onto the counter. It's ceramic, chipped, and questionably clean. "For cents," she says flatly. You blink. "I don't have." She's already turning away. You look around. A sign above the counter reads, "No bartering. No tabs. No nonsense." Fun fact, in many frontier towns, water was more expensive than whiskey. Saloons had deals with suppliers, but regular folks often had to pay a premium for clean drinking water, especially in the summer. And summer has most definitely arrived. You back out slowly, try not to look like someone whose kidneys are currently pickling in their own desperation. Back outside, you consider your next move. The sun's climbed higher, and your skin is definitely transitioning from lightly toasted to crispy regret. You need shelter, or at least a breeze. That's when you hear it. A wagon rolling in from the outskirts, pulled by 2 mules that look half asleep and entirely done with life. On the back, a few crates. One marked rations. The other, ammunition. A boy around 12 jumps down, barefoot and sunburnt. He glances your way, curious. "You got somewhere to stay?" he asks. You shake your head, then immediately regret showing weakness. He just shrugs. "Ain't no room nowhere. You can check the livery, I guess." Or the graveyard. You stare at him. He grins. Joking. You're not sure he is. Somewhere, a bell rings. Not the church kind. The alarm kind. People scatter. Doors slam. Someone yells, "Dust Riders." You have no idea what that means, but the town's reaction tells you it's bad. You duck behind a rain barrel, bone dry, of course, as hoofbeats approach like a small earthquake. Over the hill come 3 riders. Faces wrapped in bandanas, rifles strapped to their backs, clothes streaked with dust and blood. They don't stop, just ride straight through town, whooping like banshees, firing shots into the air. A bullet hits the general store sign. The inn, in general, explodes into splinters. The woman inside doesn't even duck. Historians still argue whether outlaw gangs were as widespread as dime novels suggest, but raids like this weren't exactly rare. The line between criminal and local hero was blurry at best. Jesse James was either a Robin Hood figure or a stone-cold killer, depending on which camp you ask and how many family members he left breathing. The riders disappear as fast as they came. Just a warning shot, maybe a show of force, or maybe they just didn't feel like killing anyone before lunch. Slowly, life resumes. You try to breathe normally again. Your legs feel like pudding and your hands won't stop shaking. A woman nearby nods at you. "You'll get used to it," she says. You very much doubt that. You wander farther down the road, away from the center of town. A dog follows you briefly before deciding you're not worth the effort. A man herding pigs waves with 2 fingers. He's missing the others. Eventually, you find a shaded stoop. You collapse onto it, grateful for a moment out of the sun. A chicken pecks your boot once, then waddles away, insulted. Now that you're still for a moment, the fatigue hits. It's not just tiredness, it's total overload. Your brain's still buffering everything that's happened since you woke up in that rickety stagecoach. Gunfire, poison whiskey, toothless stares, expensive water, horsemen of apocalyptic sass. You close your eyes for a second and jerk awake to find a child 2 inches from your face, holding a dead frog. "Want to buy it?" he asks cheerfully. You decline, politely. He shrugs. "Suit yourself." You wonder, distantly, if he has a business license. Your stomach growls. The hardtack's long gone, or still digesting, somewhere near your spleen. You eye the town's structures, debating your options. There's a bathhouse, but the smoke curling from its chimney suggests someone's already cooking something in there. You don't ask questions. Instead, you stand, dust yourself off, and glance toward the edge of town where the land rises into rocky hills and something glints off in the distance. Water, maybe? Hope? Or just another reminder. Out here, you don't find salvation. You earn it. The swinging saloon doors behind you clatter one last time as you step away from perdition's creaking center and aim toward that glint on the horizon. It's either water, tin, or a mirage that plans to laugh in your face. But standing still isn't an option anymore. You've seen more gun barrels than door handles in the past 2 hours, and your stomach's been conducting a full symphony in E-flat hunger. The sun's climbing fast. What was warm a moment ago has become staggering. Your jacket sticks to you like guilt. The air has weight. Breathing, it feels like sipping soup through your nose. Dust clings to everything. Your boots, your eyelashes, the inside of your ears. It's less walking now and more wading through dry regret. You pass a couple of shacks on the outskirts, one of them boasting a handwritten sign. Doctor, teeth pulled, wounds patched, spirits lifted. That last bit has a smiley face carved in with a knife. Comforting. Your destination seems to be some kind of public well, or at least it was public once. Now it's padlocked, fenced in with barbed wire, and guarded by a man asleep in a rocking chair, one hand on a shotgun, the other on a plate of half-eaten beans. You back away slowly. Historically, water ownership was a real source of conflict in many Western towns. Wells could be privately owned, and if you weren't part of the in-group, tough luck. Hope you like chewing cactus or buying Murky Creek water filtered through hope and a boot. Which is probably why your feet end up directing you toward that sad little structure you passed earlier, the bathhouse. The chimney smoke suggests life inside, and maybe, just maybe, access to a spigot or a bucket or a puddle warm enough to be useful. You push open the door. A bell tinkles overhead, and warm, Muggy air rolls over you like a wet blanket dipped in lavender and mildew. It smells like boiled soap, burning wood, and desperation. Inside, a woman barely glances at you. She's tall, thin as a rake, and has the confident posture of someone who's been holding this town together with sheer willpower and a mop handle. $1 for a bath, she says. You blink. One what? She narrows her eyes. Dollar. Or get out. There's no room for bartering. You mumble something about just needing a rinse. She points to a corner bucket with all the sympathy of a meat cleaver. That's for livestock. Feel free. You trudge over to the bucket, which contains about 2 inches of murky water and something floating in it that looks like a drowned moth with ambition. You splash some onto your face anyway. Instantly, your skin tightens as the water evaporates in the heat. It feels like slapping your cheeks with disappointment. Fun historical tidbit: many bathhouses didn't change water between customers. They simply charged less the later in the day you arrived. First bath, cleanest. Sixth bath, you're swimming in someone else's sins. You dry your face on your sleeve and stagger back outside. Still parched, still filthy, but at least slightly cooler. That counts as progress now. As you meander back toward Main Street, your ears pick up a familiar sound, the metallic clatter of hoofbeats. You turn and see a wagon parked near the blacksmith's. 2 men are offloading crates, and as one bangs the side open, a gleaming barrel slides into view. Whiskey? No. Coffee. The universe offers you a gift. You bolt toward the blacksmith, your voice catching in your throat. Coffee, you croak. The younger man looks you over, hesitates, then shrugs. You got a cup? You pat your pockets. Nothing but lint, 1 coin, and wait, half a biscuit you don't remember taking. You offer it. He takes it like a fair trade and fills a tin cup for you. It's blacker than space and smells like burned rope. You sip. It tastes like betrayal. Historians still argue whether frontier coffee was brewed badly or just criminally. Settlers often reused grounds multiple times, stretched them with chicory or dried peas, and boiled them in pots never once cleaned. One explorer described it as like drinking ink that someone screamed into. You drink anyway, because caffeine is love. And survival. You wander again, the cup warming your hands. That's when you hear it. A distant piano playing the same broken tune from earlier. Someone's back at the saloon. Business as usual, but you're not going back in there. Not yet. Your legs take you past the corral, where horses swish their tails in protest against the sun and the flies. A stable boy nods at you, but his eyes drift to your feet. You look like you walk too much, he says. You don't know how to respond. He points to a brown Mustang that looks part demon. That one's fast and angry. You eye the horse. The horse eyes you harder. 5 cents to pet him. 10 to ride. The boy adds, smirking. You shake your head. I value my spleen. Suit yourself. The horse huffs and trots away like it's insulted. You keep moving. On the far side of town, near the dusty edge where cacti start to crowd the view, you spot something curious. A man sitting in a rocking chair with a parasol and a sign that says Fortune's Read, 2 bits. You sit. He doesn't look up. You're not from here, he says. No, you won't make it to sundown. Charming. He flips a card. It's blank. You stand. Come back when you're a ghost, he mutters. You walk away, because at this point, being roasted, robbed, poisoned, and mildly cursed feels on brand. It's noon now. The sun is straight above. The shadows have disappeared. And the heat? It's not heat anymore. It's vengeance. Your feet drag as the high noon heat begins baking the town like cornbread in a cast iron pan. Shadows have vanished. The wind has stopped moving, and the sun just stares, unblinking and uncaring. Every breath is a sip of hot dust. The air tastes like gravel. You glance around Main Street. That mysterious shimmer on the horizon is long gone. Either it moved, or your brain did. And it's at this exact, inconvenient moment that you spot something plastered outside the sheriff's office. A poster. No, the poster. Wanted. $10. Dead or alive. You step closer. The sketch. Well, let's be clear. It's a lazy drawing. Charcoal lines, crude shading. But the resemblance is close enough to trigger the kind of dread that starts behind your ears and travels straight to your bladder. Same jawline, similar haircut. The nose might be off, but still. $10 is enough for 2 baths, real water, and a cup of coffee that doesn't taste like charred glue. You're not paranoid, but you're surrounded by people who like quick cash and quicker shootouts. Historically, wanted posters were often vague, with no photographs. Lawmen relied on word of mouth, and he looks about you high reports. This meant false accusations were terrifyingly common. A slight resemblance could get you shot, jailed, or both, usually in that order. You duck into an alley and press your back to a splintered wall, heart thudding. You think of changing your appearance, but options are limited. Shaving your head with a rusty horseshoe? Unwise. Smearing yourself with dirt? Already done. You need information, and maybe someone who knows the town's rules better than you. That's when you remember the gambler from a saloon. The one with the twitchy eye and the suspiciously clean boots. You look like a man who traffics in rumors and might owe a few favors. You head back. The saloon's cooler now, the crowd thinner. The piano's quiet. You spot the gambler by the window, sipping something thick and brown from a chipped glass. You approach slowly. You remember me? He glances up. You the one ducking bullets at breakfast. You nod. He smirks. You're wanted now? Maybe. He leans back. Could be bad luck. Could be you look like Curtis Deeks. Local bandit, known for robbing churches and sneezing when nervous. You sneezy. No. He raises an eyebrow. Might not matter. Folks here don't check details. $10 is $10. He downs the rest of his drink. You'll need to keep low. Avoid the jail, the general store, and the preacher. He moonlights as a bounty hunter. You blink. The preacher. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. You thank him and slip out again, keeping your head down. The street seems quieter now, but not calm. It's the stillness that settles before something breaks. You sense eyes on you, maybe from the window above the barber shop or behind the curtain at the boarding house. At the edge of town, a dog barks once and stops. Somewhere, a door creaks. The town feels like it's holding its breath. You head down a narrow path between buildings and find yourself behind the sheriff's office. The back wall is plain, the windows grimy. You creep along the side. No plan, just instincts and desperation. That's what voice calls out, sharp and unfriendly. Hey, you spin. It's the deputy. He's young, possibly 16, with a tin star that looks too heavy for his chest. One hand rests near his holster, the other clutches a folded wanted poster. Seen anyone look like this? He asks, stepping closer. You glance. It's you. Sort of. You shake your head. Hard to say. Looks like half the town. He snorts. True enough. Then he pauses, squinting at your face. There's a long moment where time drips like molasses. The deputy's hand inches closer to his sidearm. But then a distraction. A clatter far off. A horse whinnies. Someone yells fire from the far end of town. The deputy turns, distracted. And you? You run. You don't sprint. That would be too obvious. You move fast, weaving through the alleyways, ducking behind barrels and crates, and one very confused goat. You make it to the far end of town, past the livery, past the outhouse, past a man selling soap he clearly doesn't use himself. You don't stop until you're crouched behind the broken fence near the old schoolhouse, panting, limbs buzzing with adrenaline. Historians still argue whether towns enforced law based on principle or personal convenience. More often than not, the law was whoever had the gun and the nerve to use it. Deputies could be kids. Judges were sometimes shopkeepers. And guilt? Optional. You sit in the dirt, sweat running down your back in itchy rivulets. Your mouth is dry. Your pulse is loud. You've officially become a fugitive, or someone who looks close enough to one. A bird lands nearby, cocks its head at you, and flies away, probably to tattle. A passing wagon kicks up a fresh wave of dust, and you cough into your elbow, trying to disappear behind your own misery. You need to find shelter, food, and someone who doesn't want to shoot you for $10. The sun's still brutal, and it's not even mid-afternoon. You're beginning to understand something very real, very deeply. You're not living the Wild West. You're barely surviving it, and you still have hours to go. You're sweating from places you didn't know had sweat glands. The heat now radiates upward off the ground in visible waves, and it's not just your imagination. Your boots are starting to feel like portable ovens. You pull one off briefly and discover, to your horror, that the bottom of your sock has practically fused to the sole. Welcome to the high noon of the Wild West. This isn't cinematic heat. There's no dramatic showdown music playing, no conveniently timed breeze to ruffle your coat. This is the kind of sun that cracks wagon wheels and brains. You can practically hear your internal organs sizzling. Historically, Western heat wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a killer. Temperatures regularly climbed past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or 38 degrees Celsius if your brain hasn't melted into Fahrenheit, especially in the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. Many travelers underestimated the environment. More than one expedition simply disappeared. And here you are, walking that same path, with your last meal being a brick of regret, and your only hydration a shot of questionable bean juice coffee. You duck beneath the overhang of a derelict shed. Shade. Glorious. Lukewarm shade. You slump to the ground, breathing like you just ran a marathon through soup. A tin can rolls by on the breeze, empty like your survival plan. And something worse happens. You start seeing things. At first, it's subtle, a flicker in the corner of your vision, a shimmer. But then it sharpens into something that looks suspiciously like a well-maintained picnic table with a glass of lemonade on it. You blink. Gone. You know it's a mirage, but your body doesn't care. Your tongue swells slightly. Your fingers twitch. Part of your brain whispers, "Go toward the lemonade." You don't. Instead, you stand and stagger toward the edge of town again, where the earth tilts upward into low, baked hills. Maybe there's a breeze. Maybe there's a cave. Maybe you can lie very still and pretend to be a rock. You pass a group of women hanging laundry, all wearing full skirts, long sleeves, and bonnets like they're attending a Victorian oven-themed tea party. One gives you a look that could curdle fresh milk. The other two whisper behind a sheet. You hear the word drifter. You also hear the word sweaty. Accurate. Eventually, you make it to the ridge overlooking the town. From here, perdition looks even smaller. Just a crooked line of buildings trying to pretend it's civilization. And above it all, the sun burns like a judgmental god. You collapse under a spindly mesquite tree, which offers roughly the same amount of shade as an umbrella made from chicken wire. Still, it's better than nothing. You take a breath and wait. Buzzing. You glance to your right. There, in the dirt, half buried under rocks, is a rattlesnake. And it is not pleased to see you. Its tail flicks, a rapid warning. You freeze. Historians still argue whether rattlesnakes are inherently aggressive or simply misunderstood. Some say they'll always warn before striking. Others note that plenty of people ended up with fangs in their ankles while just trying to pee behind a rock. Your options are slim. Run. You'll trip over your own shoelaces and make it easier. Fight. With what? Your witty sarcasm. Instead, you back away very slowly, keeping your eyes locked on the snake's flicking tongue and coil body. After 3 eternal steps, the buzzing fades. The snake slithers beneath a bush. You exhale like you've just held your breath for 4 years. And now your heart's racing again. Excellent. Just what your dehydrated body needed. You keep moving up the ridge, legs like soggy noodles. Eventually, you reach the top and collapse behind a rock that's just cool enough not to fry an egg on. You sit there for a long moment, trying to gather your thoughts, what's left of them. The world's gone oddly quiet. No gunshots, no boots, just the distant shriek of a hawk overhead and the wind dragging dust across the hills. Then you hear it, a low moan. You turn, eyes scanning the slope behind you. There, half hidden by a shrub, lies a man. His hat's off. His face is red and blistered. His lips are cracked. He's barely conscious. His canteen is empty beside him. You hesitate. Helping him means sharing what little energy you have. Leaving him, well, that's not an option either, is it? You crawl toward him. Hey, you whisper. He blinks, tries to speak, doesn't succeed. You offer your canteen, even though it's dry too. It's the thought that counts. He grabs your arm, eyes locking with yours. Don't trust the water sellers, he rasps. You blink. What? He passes out. Okay. Fringe historical tidbit. There were indeed towns where water suppliers were less than honest. Some drew from poison wells. Others diluted clean water with runoff. There are records of townspeople suffering from arsenic poisoning after drinking from supposedly fresh cisterns, especially when mining runoff leaked into supplies. You sit beside him, the heat baking both of you into jerky, wondering what it means. Don't trust the water sellers. Is that a warning? Or just heatstroke poetry? You glance down the hill again. Perdition looks even less inviting now. The people, the noise, the suspicious preacher with a bounty side hustle. And all around, the land just stretches. Brown, dry, indifferent. This is what the West is. Not showdowns or gold. Just survival, day by punishing day, beneath a sun that doesn't even blink. You wake up to something brushing your face. Not a breeze. Not a hand. A snout. You open your eyes just in time to find a horse nose inches from yours, sniffing with the slow deliberation of an animal deciding whether you're food, friend, or new type of bush. The horse snorts, backs up, and stares at you. It's the same brown Mustang from earlier, the one with attitude, muscle, and the dead behind the eyes expression of an animal who's seen things and doesn't like people in general. Especially not you. You sit up slowly, blinking through the late afternoon glare. The sun's still up, but it's beginning to slide west, casting long, warped shadows across the dusty ground. The man you found earlier? Gone. Either he recovered, vanished, or was a mirage with a dramatic exit. But the horse? Still here, watching. You look around. There's a saddle slung over a rock nearby, and a broken bridle on the ground. Seems this horse bucked someone, and you're the lucky soul he's decided to harass next. You reach out a cautious hand. He doesn't bite it, which you file under small winds. You try to stand, legs shaky, vision still flickering with little white sparkles. But the horse just snorts again and turns slightly, like he's offering you a ride, or maybe daring you to try. Historians still argue whether Mustangs were truly wild or simply abandoned stock gone feral. Either way, they were known for being fiercely independent, hard to break, and occasionally possessed by the spirits of vengeful cowboys. This one feels like all three. You grab the saddle. It's dusty, cracked, and smells like regret. You toss it awkwardly onto his back. He tolerates it, barely. You fumble with the bridle, then give up and try looping rope around his neck. He lets you. Again, barely. You stare at his back, then at your own legs, which haven't functioned properly since that first sip of bean water. Okay, you whisper. We're doing this. You mount, or rather, you attempt to mount. Your first try ends with your foot missing the stirrup and your face kissing the horse's side. Your second try has more success. You get one leg over before the Mustang bolts forward like a cannonball of vengeance. You scream, just a little, then you cling. The ride is not graceful, or comfortable, or even remotely safe. You bounce like a sack of potatoes tied to a washing machine. Every time the horse shifts gears, from annoyed trot to furious gallop, your spine gets a new personality. You try to steer, but the horse ignores your feeble tugs. He seems to know where he's going, and your input is about as meaningful as a whisper in a thunderstorm. Still, he heads west, back toward town, and maybe, just maybe, toward water. You pass a dead tree split by lightning, a fence made of antlers, and one man sitting on a rock painting his toenails with red clay. You don't ask. Eventually, the Mustang slows and trots into the town's tiny corral area. A few heads turn as you arrive, clinging to the saddle horn like it's the last French fry at a family reunion. You slide off the horse with all the elegance of a sack falling downstairs. Your legs collapse beneath you, your boots catch, and you land in a pile of hay and horse poop. Nice. The stable boy from earlier appears, chewing a stick of something that might be licorice or fence bark. He stares. You riding him? You wheeze a nod. He whistles. Ain't nobody stayed on him more than 8 seconds since spring. You check your watch, if you had one. How long was I up there? He shrugs. Long enough to make enemies. You blink. Enemies? He nods at the livery. Some fella paid to train that horse. Said he'd break it or die trying. He's not going to be happy you beat him to it. Great. Add horse rivalry to your growing list of survival issues. The boy holds out a small pouch. Here, oats. For the horse. Not you. You sigh. You look at the Mustang again. He's snorting proudly, flicking his tail like he just won something. You reach out and pat his neck. He doesn't flinch. You allow yourself a moment of connection. Then he bites your sleeve and chews it thoughtfully. Affection. Wild West style. You finally make your way to a nearby pump. It squeaks with age, but coughs up a trickle of precious water. You cup your hands, drink greedily. Cold, slightly metallic, but real. Historically, most frontier towns had at least one communal hand pump, but not all water was safe. Lead pipes, shallow wells, and stagnant barrels were common. Some pioneers claimed you could taste the minerals and decide how fast they'd kill you. You lean against the pump, drenched in sweat, dirt, and the kind of existential fatigue only a rogue Mustang can gift a person. Then you notice the sheriff walking by. He stops, looks at you, looks at the horse. Yours. You glance at the horse. He flicks an ear. Yeah, you say. Mostly a lie. The sheriff nods. Ride like that could win you a job. Your heart skips. Job. He jerks his chin toward the mesa. Ranch west of here needs hands. Horses, cattle, fences. Son'll cook you. And the owner's meaner than a badger in a bucket. But it pays. You consider it. A job means money. Money means water. And food. Maybe even a bath not sourced from livestock. But a ranch job means more time in this place. More heat. More dust. More chances for someone to figure out your face is worth $10 dead or slightly alive. Still, it's something. Think about it, the sheriff says and walks on. You glance at the horse. He sneezes. You sigh. Looks like you got a partner now, whether he likes you or not. You and the horse, still unnamed, mostly out of fear he'll reject it, stand silently near the town's outskirts, the sun dipping low enough to cast long shadows that stretch like tired limbs across the dirt. The heat hasn't left. It's just simmered down into a humid exhaustion that clings to your skin. Behind you, the town is slowing. A few candles flicker in windows. The blacksmith's forge lets off one last belch of smoke before shutting down for the night. But you're not ready to lie down. You still haven't washed the day off, literally or metaphorically. A sign catches your eye. Creek Camp, public wash and drinking, 1 mile west. It sounds like heaven. You hitch the Mustang outside the livery. He lets you, surprisingly, and begin the short hike, feet crunching along the dirt path that winds away from perdition and into the scrubby wilderness. The air smells slightly sweeter out here, like sagebrush and night flowers, or maybe your brain's trying to distract you from the growing stink wafting off your own body. Soon enough, you hear it, the gentle gurgle of water over rocks. Actual, moving water. The creek. You practically sprint the last few steps, and when it comes into view, it's almost too good to be true. Thin, yes, but real. Glinting in the dusk, cold and narrow, flanked by boulders and half a dozen travelers all doing what you came to do. Bathe like your life depends on it. You head downstream, past a group of miners arguing over a busted pan, and find your own patch of water. You strip down to your undershirt and trousers, crouch low, and plunge your arms into the current. Bliss. Cold. Sharp. But bliss. You splash your face, your neck, your hair. The water turns murky instantly. Your grime alone probably qualifies as a minor ecological event. And then, just as you're about to dunk your whole upper body, a concussive boom shakes the earth. Water leaps from the creek. Birds screech and fly from the trees. You flinch, hit your knee on a rock, and tumble into the water with a sound somewhere between a grunt and a yelp. The other creek goers shout and scramble. You surface, sputtering. What the? Another boom, this time farther upstream. And then you see it. 2 men in soaked boots, trudging out from behind a rock outcrop with a satchel of what looks like sticks of red wax, dynamite. Old, sweat-crusted, overconfident dynamite. They're dynamite fishing. Yes, that was a real thing. Fringe fact? When people didn't want to waste time with hooks and patience, they sometimes lit sticks of dynamite and tossed them into streams. The blast stunned the fish, which floated up to the surface for easy collection. And sometimes a side of crater. You scramble to the bank and yell, "You trying to kill someone?" One of the men grins. "You see fish? I see supper." Another blast erupts. This one sends a rock flying into the air. It lands uncomfortably close to your foot. You retreat, fast, back toward where you left your shirt and boots. By the time you're dressed, still damp, now shaking, you're no longer alone. 3 travelers have gathered by the edge of the creek. One of them's holding a frying pan and a dead trout. The others are comparing bruises and burns. You try to laugh. It comes out more like a wheeze. "Welcome to camp," one of them says. "Watch for shrapnel." You nod, too tired to reply, and sit back down on a dry patch of earth. The sky is purple now, streaked with faint stars. Crickets have started their symphony. Somewhere a coyote yips. Or maybe it's laughing at you. As the adrenaline from the water-blasting chaos wears off, you finally let yourself breathe. Cleanish. Not dead. That's a win. You lie back, looking at the stars. Historians still argue whether these creek camps were safe havens or powder kegs. Some say they were places of rest and shared hardship. Others note they were frequent sites of theft, brawls, and diseases passed around like poker chips. A man to your left coughs loudly. You scoot away discreetly. Still, you're dry now. Sort of. You let your arms rest behind your head and listen to the crackle of someone lighting a fire nearby. You can smell fish roasting. Might even be edible if you like seasoning your dinner with mild trauma. Eventually, someone passes around a bottle. The man beside you offers it wordlessly. You take a sip. It burns like shame and licorice. But it's not bad. The conversation around the fire drifts into that sleepy, half-sarcastic rhythm that comes from people too exhausted to pretend. One man's complaining about his mule. Another brags about a claim he almost had before the mine collapsed. You say nothing. You're still trying to process being nearly turned into soup by dynamite. But one thing is clear. Nobody here has it easy. These folks are ragged, sunburned, scarred. Some of them have stories they won't tell. Others talk too much, too loud, just to push the silence back. But every one of them is surviving the only way the West allows. One bath, one blast, one burned fish at a time. You lie back, letting the firelight dance on your eyelids. The conversation fading to a hum. You don't sleep. Not quite, but you stop moving. For now. Because tomorrow's got its own bullets. You're up before dawn again. Except this time, it's not the jostling of the stagecoach that wakes you. It's a sound far less civilized. A hiss. A sharp, dry rattle. You freeze. That's not the wind. That's not a broken branch. That's something ancient and scaly preparing a very specific kind of argument. One that ends with venom and a really bad morning. Slowly, you tilt your head. There, not 10 feet from your boots, coiled in perfect malice, is a rattlesnake. And this one's not just watching you. It's interested. You sit completely still. You breathe, so lightly your ribs barely move. Then, from somewhere behind you, a boot crunches softly in the dirt. Another camper. Maybe help? Then another crunch. Then more. You glance back, just with your eyes. Nope, not campers. 3 men. Dusty hats. Long coats. Weapons holstered, but hands resting near them. One's already lighting a match off his boot heel. Bandits. You are now caught between a rattlesnake and a trio of human snakes. It's barely dawn, and already the universe is throwing curveballs. The tallest of the men spits into the dust and gestures toward you. Well, morning sunshine. You look like you wandered off someone's payroll. You don't speak. The rattlesnake tightens its coil. The second man points. That him. The third pulls something from his coat. A piece of paper. Wanted poster. Of course. He squints. Hard to tell. Sketch don't do the ears justice. Rude. The tall one takes a step forward. The rattler rattles louder. Everyone stops. He squints down at it. Well, I'll be. Historians still argue whether bandit groups in the West were tight-knit gangs or loose collectives of desperate men. But what's clear is that they were opportunistic. Anything worth money was worth stealing, and anything that looked like it might be worth something got stolen anyway. You, unfortunately, still look vaguely like someone with a bounty. The leader chuckles. This some kind of hostage negotiation? You making deals with reptiles now. You still don't move. Then the third man raises his pistol, not aiming at you, but at the snake. You act, not because you love the snake, but because you really, really don't love being between a gun and a trigger. You roll hard left, throw your tin cup at the man's face, and scramble backward just as he fires. The shot misses both you and the snake. Thank whoever's in charge of miracles today. But it hits something else, a nearby log, which topples, startling the snake enough that it bolts for cover instead of you. You run. You don't look back. Gunshots bark behind you. 1, 2, then a third that zings past your shoulder and sends a stinging spray of pebbles into your neck. You dive behind a boulder, heart hammering like a telegraph in a storm. A voice calls out, "You're just making it worse, friend." You peek. The bandits are fanning out. Think. The creek, still flowing, still close. You sprint for it, veering hard down the slope, boots slipping on the dew-slick dirt. The water's cold, again, and fast, but shallow enough to cross if you don't fall flat. You splash in just as a bullet lands where your foot was a second ago. The noise draws others. Campers stir from their bedrolls, confused and shouting. Someone screams, "Raid," and a rifle fires back toward the hills. Chaos. You emerge on the far bank, soaked again and limping slightly, but alive. The bandits don't follow. They melt back into the ridge. Either they've had enough excitement, or they've decided you're not worth the bullet bill. You drag yourself toward a campfire where two older men are staring wide-eyed, pans still in their hands. One of them points. You bring that. Just leaving it behind, you pant. They nod, like that makes total sense. You slump near a log and finally exhale. Fringe fact? In some camps, travelers took turns acting as makeshift sentries. Not out of any official rule, but because raids were common enough to justify it. You, on the other hand, seem to be single-handedly increasing this camp's danger level by a solid 300%. Eventually, someone throws you a blanket. Another tosses you a tin of something hot. Beans. Again. But right now, they taste like victory. You dry your socks on a stick near the fire and quietly contemplate your decisions. Namely, why did you think you could survive the Wild West? And second, are snakes technically your allies now? You stay near the fire for a while, watching the horizon like it owes you something. Later, someone asks your name. You consider answering honestly, but instead you just say nobody. They nod. In the West, sometimes that's the smartest answer you can give. You make it back to town just as the sun crests again, this time glowing with that harsh, late morning light that casts every mistake in full color. Your clothes are half dried from your creek encounter, crusted with river muck, dynamite silt, and the residue of a near-death snake situation. And now you smell like outdoor stew, which wouldn't be so bad if it weren't you as the base ingredient. As you hobble down Main Street, folks take notice. Not in a good way. More of the who let the raccoon in a waistcoat back into town kind of glance. You duck into the alley behind the stable, your legs still wobbly and your ribs slightly bruised from yesterday's horse rodeo adventure. And wouldn't you know it, the horse is still there. He perks his ears when he sees you, then flicks his tail and turns his back. Classic. You're about to walk away when a low whistle cuts through the air. From behind the barn steps a man, dusty, narrow-eyed, and holding a rifle as casually as someone might cradle a loaf of bread. "Thought I'd find you near the horse," he says. "You're the one riding him yesterday?" You nod slowly. He walks closer. "That's my horse." You blink. "Oh, I borrowed him." He tilts his head. "He threw me into a cactus last week and hasn't let anyone ride him since." You break him. "No," you say honestly. "I think he just tolerated me." The man considers that. "Well, ain't that something?" You wait. He doesn't shoot you. Instead, he lowers the rifle and extends a hand. "Name's Jacqueline. I run a cattle route north o' here. Could use someone with your luck." "Luck? You're still breathing, ain't ya?" "Fair." He gestures for you to walk with him. You follow cautiously. Jacqueline talks as he leads you west, past the outer shacks and into the high ridge trail where the land starts to slope upward. "We've had problems," he says. "Bandits. Wolves. Folks not showing back up after water runs. Sounds safe." He grins. "It's not, but it pays." He pauses near a rocky outcrop, and points below. In the valley is a dusty trail, barely a road, and a few cattle dots. Wagons too, but on the ridge opposite, you see a flicker of movement. Riders. Jacqueline sees them too. "Those ain't ours," he mutters. He turns. "You any good with a rifle?" You laugh once too loudly. "Not remotely." "Well," he shrugs, "it's never too late to start." You expect him to hand you a gun. Instead, he tells you to stay and watch. If you see him move toward the trail, he says, "Ride fast. Warn the others." "You're leaving me alone?" He grins again. "Horse likes you." And just like that, he disappears down the slope, rifle slung, whistling some morbid tune. You turn back to watch the ridge. The riders haven't moved yet, but they're there, watching, waiting. The heat climbs. You squint into the light, every shadow now suspicious. Your lips crack when you lick them. The rifle next to you, Jacqueline must have left it there, is heavier than expected, the metal already hot. Historians still argue whether lone lookouts were common or suicidal. Many frontier jobs were informal, unpaid, and based entirely on trust. You now find yourself occupying the lowest rung of frontier security, vaguely responsible stranger. You crouch there for what feels like hours. The horse grazes nearby, unbothered. Then the movement comes. Two of the distant riders veer off, slowly, deliberately, toward the valley. You spring into action. Kind of. You fumble your way onto the horse's back, still wet, still sore, and kick his side. He bolts. Thankfully, in the right direction this time. You thunder down the slope, dust rising in clouds behind you, yelling for all you're worth. By the time you reach the edge of the cattle drive, chaos is unfolding. Shouts, barking dogs, two riders already galloping toward the east flank. Someone's firing into the air to scatter the herd, which only makes things worse. A bandit bursts from the brush ahead, waving a pistol and screaming nonsense. You duck instinctively, probably saving your nose from becoming a new breathing hole, and the horse barrels past him, almost clipping the guy's boot. You skid into the drive camp, leaping from the saddle, gasping. They're coming, ridge, north side. Jacqueline reappears, already loading a new cartridge. "Good eyes," he says. "Now get low." You crouch behind a chuck wagon, your ears ringing from nearby gunfire. Someone tosses you a pistol, small, rusty, and trembling slightly from your grip. The standoff's brief. The bandits realize the herd has scatter-trained cowboys, and you now have a tiny gun. They back off. For now. Fringe tidbit, bandits often raided herds not to steal cattle, but to scatter them, then loot supply wagons while the cowboys chase cows into the horizon. It was messy, mean-spirited, and surprisingly effective. But today, you got lucky. When the dust settles, Jacqueline walks over and claps you on the shoulder. You ain't totally useless. It's the closest thing to a compliment you've heard in days. You hand him the pistol, hands shaking slightly. "I don't think this works." He shrugs. "Didn't need it to." You did good. As the sun sets, the camp breathes again. Fires are lit. Beans are reheated for the 100th time. Someone plays a harmonica with exactly 2 notes. You sit on an overturned crate, your head spinning. You rode. You warned. You survived. Barely. But still. It starts with a handshake and ends with a shovel. You've agreed, sort of, to help Jacqueline's crew with the next leg of the cattle run. There's no contract, no paperwork, just a nod and a try not to get kicked. That's your job description. Compensation? He says he'll get a cut if you don't die. Reassuring. The sun's down now, and with the heat gone, the night has teeth. The prairie air cuts through your shirt like a blade dipped in mint. You pull your coat tighter and huddle near the fire. Around you, cowhands shovel beans into their mouths with the speed of men who've learned meals aren't guaranteed. Someone tells a story about a man who once roped a tornado. Someone else bets they can do it with one arm and a promise. You're not sure what's true anymore. Jacqueline finishes chewing on a strip of jerky and motions for you to follow. You do, reluctantly, boots crunching over trampled grass and cow patties. He leads you to the edge of the drive, where a series of canvas tents sit in a loose crescent. "This here's temporary," he says, nodding toward a hole in the ground barely wider than a wagon wheel. We dig it, we sleep next to it, we keep a rifle nearby, and we don't ask questions if someone's missing come morning. You swallow. That's normal. He chuckles. In Boomtown country? Yeah. Turns out you've been volunteered to help in a nearby mine. Not for gold, but silver. One of the wagons you helped protect was hauling tools and blasting powder. The local claim holder, some crusty guy named Mulligan, wants another body to help reinforce a collapsed shaft. That body? Yours. Next morning, they send you off with a dented helmet, a chipped pickaxe, and vague instructions. Swing low, don't breathe too deep, and if you hear would groan, run. Perfect. You ride out to the mine just as the sun crests the far hills, casting light on the craggy entrance. A wooden sign hangs crookedly, Devil's Spine Shaft Number 4. Comforting. You dismount and follow a short man with a lantern and a limp. Reed, the assistant. We lost 3 fellas in the last collapse, he says cheerily. Might find parts of him. Just step careful. You descend into the shaft, ducking under cracked beams and brushing past hanging roots. The lantern casts a weak, golden glow. It smells like sulfur, sweat, and old socks. The deeper you go, the less you can hear the wind. Instead, the mine groans and pops and whispers, with shifting rocks settling, the earth doing unsettling earth things. Historians still argue whether small mining operations like these were death traps by negligence or just the price of ambition. Either way, safety wasn't high on the list. Miners used canaries, crossed fingers, and dynamite more often than any official training. Here's your spot, Reed says, pointing to a corner where a wooden beam is bowing like a drunk try and stand. You keep it from falling, you go home. You don't well. He doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. You set to work. You swing the pick. Chip pause. Swing. Chip. Breathe. Dust fills your nostrils. Your shoulders burn. Sweat pools in places not previously charted on any map. The air gets thicker with each swing. You cough. Reed hands you a cloth to wrap over your face. It smells worse than the mine. You don't ask what happened to the last person who used it. After an hour, you hear it groaning. Not human. Wood. A crack. A creak. A shower of pebbles. Reed's eyes widen. Out. You drop the pick. You run. Behind you, the shaft groans louder. A beam splinters. Rocks fall. The ceiling hisses dust. You dive into the light of the tunnel mouth as the cave-in swallows the section you were just in. You lie there, coughing, gasping, face streaked with soot and pure disbelief. Reed helps you up, slapping your back like it might help your lungs remember what they do. You're lucky, he says. Usually, the mine gets its due. Fringe tidbit, some miners believed in spirits underground. Knockers who warned of collapses or lured men deeper into danger. Others said it was just the rock talking. But after today, you're inclined to think something down there doesn't like being disturbed. You're given the rest of the day off. No bonus. Just a crust of bread and a half-sincere good work. You ride back to the cattle camp in silence. Your hands blistered and your bones vibrating from the near-death experience. As the sun lowers again, casting warm light on the longhorns scattered across the plain, you realize something strange. You're still here, still breathing, still sore, still surviving. And now, you know something others don't. What it feels like to run from a collapsing mine with death whispering in your ear. You stare at the fire that night, blank-eyed, the sounds of laughter and harmonica floating around you like ghosts. You sip a tin of warm coffee that tastes marginally better than last week's batch. Jacqueline passes you without a word. Just nods once. Respect, maybe. Or acknowledgement that you didn't die today. A small victory. And in the Wild West, that's the best kind. You wake up to the sound of a brass band and a man screaming about his pancreas. Both are coming from the same wagon. Welcome to the Traveling Medicine Show. It's parked smack in the middle of Perdition's dusty main road, complete with a banner reading Dr. Thistlewump's Universal Elixir, a cure for all known afflictions, and at least 4 footnotes you don't trust. The wagon's a riot of color, greens, purples, and golds that look wildly out of place in a town where the most vibrant thing is usually a sunburn. There's a collapsible stage built onto the side, and atop it stands a man in a tailcoat, monocle glinting, mustache waxed into ambitious loops. He's got energy, confidence, and a voice loud enough to terrify cattle 2 counties away. "You there, traveler," he bellows, pointing directly at you. Do your joints ache? Do your gums bleed? Do you suffer from melancholia, tight pantaloons, or chronic flat-footedness? You freeze mid-step. "Yes," he nods sagely. "You look like someone familiar with agony." "Fair." He pulls a bottle from a velvet-lined case. It's green, glows faintly, and contains, judging by the smell, some unholy alliance between turpentine and regret. "This," he declares, "is salvation in a bottle. Thistlewump's universal elixir. One sip and you'll sleep better, run faster, digest complex emotions, and, yes, even grow back that which you have lost." A woman in the crowd gasps. A man clutches his knee with sudden theatrical hope. You're handed a free sample. It's warm, thick, bubbles even though it's not carbonated. You sniff it and immediately regret living. Still, you sip, and you instantly lose feeling in your lips. Historically, these medicine shows were all the rage in the late 19th century. Part performance, part snake oil, they drew crowds from miles around. The elixirs often contained alcohol, opium, chloroform, or, when feeling especially experimental, radium. People didn't know better. Some didn't care. When nothing else worked, hope sold faster than truth. You blink through the chemical haze and feel oddly floaty. Dr. Thistlewump takes your blank stare as approval. Behold, a man reborn. The crowd cheers. Coins clink. Someone faints from excitement or liver failure. Hard to tell. He uses the distraction to sell another dozen bottles. Then 2 more. Then 10. You try to speak, but your tongue has apparently gone on strike. A child tugs at your sleeve. "Mister, is it true it makes your hair grow?" You blink down at her. She blinks up at you. "Mine's patchy," she whispers. You manage a soft nod. Not encouragement, just muscle confusion. Dr. Thistlewump finishes his pitch with a final flourish, bowing as confetti flies from somewhere inside his coat. A dove escapes, then a second dove, which immediately gets snatched by a hawk. Nature is fast out here. As the crowd disperses, the showman hops down and walks straight to you. "You've got the face of a believer," he says, dabbing his forehead with his silk handkerchief. "What's your ailment, friend?" You work your jaw until your mouth functions again. Mostly exhaustion and confusion. Maybe poison now. He chuckles. "You'll live longer confused." He glances around, then lowers his voice. "You want to know the secret?" You blink. There is no secret, but hope. He taps your forehead. "That sells better than gold." He winks and walks off. You watch as his assistants begin loading crates of elixir back into the wagon, many still glowing like fireflies. A mule snorts nearby and kicks the wheel. The wagon groans. One bottle slips, smashes, and sends a small puff of green mist spiraling into the air. Everyone steps way back. You do too. Fringe fact? A few traveling elixir brands did more than just make people tipsy. One 1890s tonic advertised as a soothing remedy for colicky children was later found to contain morphine, alcohol, and traces of mercury. Parents swore by it. Some kids never swore again. You shake the fuzz from your head and start walking back toward the saloon. But something catches your eye. A makeshift booth on the corner with a painted sign that reads, "Mild curses removed. Harsh ones negotiated." Behind the table sits an old woman with 7 rings on each finger and a suspiciously alert raven on her shoulder. She eyes you like she already knows your browser history. "You've been touched by false medicine," she says without preamble. "You saw the show?" "No," she says. You glow. You glance at your hands. Maybe just sunburn. Maybe elixir residue. She gestures to a tin cup filled with cloudy tea. Neutralizes nonsense. You hesitate. But you've drunk dynamite-tinged creek water and hardtack whiskey by now. What's a more terrible choice? You sip. It tastes like moss and mothballs. You try not to gag. "You'll feel worse," she says. Then better. She was right about the first part. Within minutes, your stomach starts a slow somersault, and your ears feel humid. You sit on the nearest barrel and wait for your digestive system to vote on whether to stage a coup. Meanwhile, Dr. Thistlewump's wagon starts creaking away from town. his mules trotting at a pace just fast enough to discourage arrest, but slow enough to allow for last-minute purchases. As he disappears down the road, a boy chases after him, waving coins. You just sit there, pulsing gently. A man next to you mutters, "Don't worry." You puke it out, you get your eyebrows back. You hadn't noticed your eyebrows were gone. You pat your forehead. They're still there, aren't they? You lay back against the barrel, eyes closed, head spinning. Around you, perdition resumes its slow churn, trading, spitting, surviving. And you survive too, just a little weirder now. You wake up with the taste of moss tea still in your mouth, and the uncomfortable suspicion that at least one of your internal organs has rearranged itself out of spite. The sky's gone pale gray, the kind of dusty light that signals either early morning or a hangover from the sun. You sit up slowly, clutching your side, and realize you're not behind the saloon where you passed out. You're in the telegraph office, or what used to be one. The windows are cracked. The walls lean suspiciously inward. The floor creaks like it's holding a grudge. A thin man in a brown vest is hunched over a desk, tapping out a message on a machine that looks one thunderstorm away from complete combustion. He glances over without much interest. You the one that drank Thistlewump's nose potion? Yes. He nods. You glowed for about an hour. Sheriff was going to shoot you until I said maybe it was medical. Thanks. Don't mention it. Ever. You stand slowly, wobble a little. Why am I here? The man doesn't look up. You got a wire. Came late last night. Your stomach drops. A wire? No one here knows you. No one should. He slides a folded sheet across the desk. Paid in advance. Sender anonymous. You open it, hands trembling. Bank failed. Funds gone. Do not return. There's no signature. No punctuation. Just bad news delivered with all the warmth of a shovel to the shin. You slump into a nearby chair. Everything you thought you had, everything back east in the real world, is now officially smoke. Even your backup plan has collapsed. You can't leave the West because you've got nowhere left to go. The telegraph operator shrugs. Happens. Rails full of folks coming out here because they lost everything back there. He points out the window with a thin, bony finger. Out here, if you survive long enough, you become part of the landscape. Like a cactus or a broken fence. You thank him or grunt something similar and stagger outside. The town looks different now. Not because anything is different, but because your escape hatch just got slammed shut. You're no longer just a lost visitor. You're stuck, and the West can smell it on you. Historians still argue whether most Easterners who came west were chasing opportunity or running from failure. In reality, it was both. Thousands migrated after losing land, money, or family. Some rebuilt. Others vanished into unmarked graves and cautionary tales. You head for the livery, where your misanthropic horse is half asleep and chewing on a length of rope that probably wasn't meant to be edible. He notices you and swishes his tail once. No whinny, just judgment. I'm not leaving, you tell him, even if I wanted to. He sneezes in reply. You saddle up and ride. Not with purpose, more like drift. Past the edge of town. Past the last house with smoke rising from its chimney. Past a pair of vultures squabbling over a flattened lizard. You ride, because staying still makes the news feel real. Eventually, you come across a ridge overlooking a flat stretch of prairie. Wind whistles between the rocks like it's trying to say, told you so. You sit there for a long while. Somewhere below, a rattlesnake rustles in the grass. A hawk circles above, waiting for something smaller to get careless. Then you hear the clack of hooves behind you. You turn. It's the preacher. Of course, it's the preacher. Black hat, Bible tucked under one arm, rifle slung over the other. And that face, the one that looked way too interested in your face the first time you passed his church. You all right? He asks. You nod. Lie. He nods back. You got the look of someone whose east just fell off the map. You say nothing. I've buried 3 folks this week, he says. One was shot. One just stopped eating. One slipped in the outhouse. He sighs. Life out here doesn't ask your opinion. It just keeps moving. Then, casually, he unshoulders the rifle. You go still. Easy, he says. I ain't here for blood. Just wanted to ask. He holds up the wanted poster. That you? You stare at it. Pause. Then say no. He studies your face. A long, heavy pause. Then he nods, folds the poster, and pockets it. Didn't think so, but he's still watching you as he turns his horse and trots off down the trail. Fringe historical tidbit: some preachers on the frontier were also lawmen, informants, or bounty hunters. When churches couldn't pay wages, men of the cloth found alternative incomes. Shooting sinners was considered a bit more immediate than saving them. You ride back slowly. By the time you return to town, the sky is darkening. A storm's building. You can smell the rain, dry grass, ozone, and something that always reminds you of old books and trouble. You dismount, unsaddle your horse, and sit in the barn with him, watching thunderclouds roll in. And that's when you realize your old life is gone. But you're still here, still unwanted, still mistaken for a criminal, still likely to be shot, but still here. Maybe that's the best the West ever offers. You wake up with the taste of moss tea still in your mouth and the uncomfortable suspicion that at least one of your internal organs has rearranged itself out of spite. The sky's gone pale gray, the kind of dusty light that signals either early morning or a hangover from the sun. You sit up slowly, clutching your side, and realize you're not behind the saloon where you passed out. You're in the telegraph office, or what used to be one. The windows are cracked. The walls lean suspiciously inward. The floor creaks like it's holding a grudge. A thin man in a brown vest is hunched over a desk, tapping out a message on a machine that looks one thunderstorm away from complete combustion. He glances over without much interest. You the one that drank Thistlewump's nose potion? Yes. He nods. You glowed for about an hour. Sheriff was going to shoot you until I said maybe it was medical. Thanks. Don't mention it. Ever. You stand slowly, wobble a little. Why am I here? The man doesn't look up. You got a wire. Came late last night. Your stomach drops. A wire? No one here knows you. No one should. He slides a folded sheet across the desk. Paid in advance. Sender anonymous. You open it, hands trembling. Bank failed. Funds gone. Do not return. There's no signature. No punctuation. Just bad news delivered with all the warmth of a shovel to the shin. You slump into a nearby chair. Everything you thought you had, everything back east in the real world, is now officially smoke. Even your backup plan has collapsed. You can't leave the West because you've got nowhere left to go. The telegraph operator shrugs. Happens. Rail's full of folks coming out here because they lost everything back there. He points out the window with a thin, bony finger. Out here, if you survive long enough, you become part of the landscape. Like a cactus or a broken fence. You thank him or grunt something similar and stagger outside. The town looks different now. Not because anything is different, but because your escape hatch just got slammed shut. You're no longer just a lost visitor. You're stuck, and the West can smell it on you. Historians still argue whether most Easterners who came west were chasing opportunity or running from failure. In reality, it was both. Thousands migrated after losing land, money, or family. Some rebuilt. Others vanished into unmarked graves and cautionary tales. You head for the livery, where your misanthropic horse is half asleep and chewing on a length of rope that probably wasn't meant to be edible. He notices you and swishes his tail once. No whinny, just judgment. I'm not leaving, you tell him, even if I wanted to. He sneezes in reply. You saddle up and ride. Not with purpose, more like drift. Past the edge of town. Past the last house with smoke rising from its chimney. Past a pair of vultures squabbling over a flattened lizard. You ride because staying still makes the news feel real. Eventually, you come across a ridge overlooking a flat stretch of prairie. Wind whistles between the rocks like it's trying to say, told you so. You sit there for a long while. Somewhere below, a rattlesnake rustles in the grass. A hawk circles above, waiting for something smaller to get careless. Then you hear the clack of hooves behind you. You turn. It's the preacher. Of course it's the preacher. Black hat, Bible tucked under one arm, rifle slung over the other. And that face, the one that looked way too interested in your face the first time you passed his church. You all right? He asks. You nod. Lie. He nods back. You got the look of someone whose east just fell off the map. You say nothing. I've buried 3 folks this week, he says. One was shot. One just stopped eating. One slipped in the outhouse. He sighs. Life out here doesn't ask your opinion. It just keeps moving. Then, casually, he unshoulders the rifle. You go still. Easy, he says. I ain't here for blood. Just wanted to ask. He holds up the wanted poster. That you? You stare at it. Pause. Then say no. He studies your face. A long, heavy pause. Then he nods, folds the poster, and pockets it. Didn't think so, but he's still watching you as he turns his horse and trots off down the trail. Fringe historical tidbit. Some preachers on the frontier were also lawmen, informants, or bounty hunters. When churches couldn't pay wages, men of the cloth found alternative incomes. Shooting sinners was considered a bit more immediate than saving them. You ride back slowly. By the time you return to town, the sky is darkening. A storm's building. You can smell the rain, dry grass, ozone, and something that always reminds you of old books and trouble. You dismount, unsaddle your horse, and sit in the barn with him, watching thunderclouds roll in. And that's when you realize your old life is gone. But you're still here, still unwanted, still mistaken for a criminal, still likely to be shot, but still here. Maybe that's the best the West ever offers. It's deep in the night now, and you're not sleeping. You tried, honest. But between the buffalo hoof prints still visible outside your door and the preacher's increasingly pointed glances, your body refuses to rest. You lie on your back in a loft above the livery, staring at the warped beams overhead, listening to the wind rattle the loose boards. Then you hear it. A long, low howl. Coyote. Then another. Then closer. You sit up slowly, straining your ears. From the window, you see the edge of town bathed in pale moonlight, all shadows and splinters and ghost-colored rooftops. Somewhere out there, just beyond the fences, something moves. Coyotes are clever. Everyone knows that. Survivors. Tricksters. In some tribes, they're sacred. In others, they're a warning. In perdition, they're just hungry. You pull your boots on slowly, leaving the rest of your gear behind, and climb down the creaking ladder. Outside, the air is cold and still, the kind of still that carries sound farther than it should. You cross the yard and hop the broken fence near the back trail, scanning the edge of the prairie. Then you see them. 4, maybe 5. Coyotes. Silent now. Circling the outer livestock pen, where a calf is kicking nervously inside a low fence. The mother cow has gone, maybe lost during the stampede. The calf bleats. You grab a shovel. It's all you've got. Historians still argue whether coyotes were a real threat to frontier livestock or just a scapegoat when a rancher miscounted. But if you've ever seen one slip under a fence or gnaw through chicken wire, you know better. You step out, boots crunching dry grass. The coyotes freeze, glowing eyes catching the moonlight. You wave the shovel. They don't run. Instead, they lower themselves into crouches, shoulders up, heads down. This is not a cartoon. They're not afraid of you. They're testing you. You yell. You bang the shovel against a fence post. Still nothing. Then, just as you're considering your odds in a close-quarters duel with 5 predators and a poorly balanced tool, someone else joins you. A voice behind you. Need a hand? You turn. It's the boy from the stable. 12, barefoot, holding a slingshot and chewing something that might be tobacco or licorice root. Before you can ask why he's awake, he fires a stone. Thwack! One of the coyotes yelps and bolts. Another thwack. Another yelp. The rest scatter, but slowly, reluctantly, like they're only postponing the meal. Lucky you, he says, slipping the slingshot into his pocket. They don't usually run from shovel guys. You exhale, finally. The calf bleats again. You don't sleep for a while after that. You sit beside the pen, just watching the field beyond the fence line, shovel in your lap. You think about coyotes and bandits and rattlesnakes and stagecoaches and stampedes. And then you realize what this is. This is normal now. Noises in the night, eyes in the dark, and the always present knowledge that something might try to kill you by morning. But also, the kid with the slingshot, the horse who lets you ride him, the gambler who tipped you off, the preacher who didn't turn you in. You're not safe, but you're not entirely alone either. Fringe fact? Sleep deprivation was a real thing on the frontier. Between predators, fires, raids, and sheer discomfort, settlers often slept in shifts. 2 hours here, 3 hours there. The idea of 8 hours a night was a luxury reserved for cities, not campsites and cowtowns. Eventually, the sky begins to lighten, and then comes the sound you started to dread. Boots. Multiple pairs. You rise slowly and step out into the yard. 5 men. Coats. Spurs. Guns. And at their front, the deputy. Not the young one with the sweaty palms. The other deputy. The one with the scar under his eye and the attitude of a man who doesn't care how messy a bounty gets as long as it ends. Morning, he says. You don't reply. He holds up a familiar poster. We had a second look. He steps closer. The nose, he says. That's you, ain't it? Behind you, the stable kid stiffens. You glance toward the church, but there's no sign of the preacher. No cavalry. No gambler. No saloon girls swinging bottles like hammers. Just you and the gunman. You raise your hand slowly. Can I explain? Nope, the deputy says. You'll do that from a cell. He gestures and the men fan out. You feel the weight of the shovel in your hands, the ache in your shoulders, the taste of cold dirt still clinging to your tongue. And for the first time in this cursed, endless day, you think this might actually be it. The stable yard is dead, quiet except for the jingle of spurs and the dry rasp of dust shifting beneath boots. The 5 deputies close in like they've done this before, and they have. Probably too many times. You stand still, hands raised, brain spinning like a wagon wheel in a mud rut. There's no weapon within reach. No friendly face in sight. Even your horse is conveniently absent, off somewhere chewing a fence or silently judging you. Let's make this easy, the lead deputy says. We'll walk nice and slow, no need for anything dramatic. You nod once, not agreeing, just acknowledging that you heard him. But something inside you, something worn thin and sun-scorched and sore from one too many brushes with death, suddenly snaps into place. Not bravado, not courage, just pure, primal tiredness. You're too tired to die quietly, too tired to accept that, after snake standoffs, buffalo stampedes, and dynamite showers, your story ends in a dusty jail cell because of a nose sketch. All right, you say, lowering your arms slightly. No drama. The deputies relax, fractionally. And that's when you run. It's not graceful. It's not smart. But it's fast. You leap sideways behind a pile of hay bales, a shot ringing out and splintering the wood beside you. You barrel around the corner, knees skidding in the dirt, arms pumping. Another shot, a miss, whizzes past your ear with a whistle that nearly takes your soul with it. You make it to the livery door and slam it behind you. It won't stop bullets, but it might buy a second or two. You yank a bridle off the wall and call for the horse. Your horse. Or at least the one that tolerates you. Nothing. You rush into the stall. There he is. Lazy. Calm. Like he hasn't noticed 5 armed men are about to introduce you to local justice. Time to earn that hay. You mutter, slinging the saddle over his back. He doesn't fight you. Not this time. Maybe even he's rooting for you now. Outside, you hear voices closing in. You tighten the cinch, grab the reins, and mount up like the town's on fire, which it might be in 10 minutes. Then comes the crash. The barn door bursts open. 2 men rush in. You kick the horse. He bolts, straight through the half-open rear gate and out into the street, hooves thundering on dry earth. You lean low in the saddle, wind howling past your ears, bullets zipping behind you like angry mosquitoes. You make it to Main Street in seconds, but it's no longer empty. The preacher is there, standing at the end of the road, waiting, and he's not holding a Bible. He's got a Colt revolver drawn, and his face is carved from something older than stone. You don't have to do this, you yell, pulling back on the reins. But he doesn't lower the weapon. Instead, he shouts, 10 paces. Wait, what? People emerge from buildings like they've practiced this. Saloon patrons, gamblers, barbers, even the undertaker, who's holding a tape measure and looks way too excited. They start forming a line, whispering, watching, a duel, a real one. Historians still argue whether high noon showdowns were common or just frontier mythology. But one thing's certain, when they did happen, they drew crowds. It wasn't just a fight, it was entertainment, ritual, and justice rolled into one. You dismount, hands trembling, boots scraping against the packed earth. Someone tosses you a pistol. It lands in the dirt near your feet. You stare at it like it might bite. The preacher waits. You pick it up, walk to your mark, turn your back to him. A voice calls out, clear and cruel as sunlight. 1. You take a step. 2. Your throat tightens. 3. Your hand brushes the grip of the gun. 4. The wind kicks up, dragging dust across your face. 5. You feel your boots sinking slightly into the grit. 6. He's going to shoot you before 10. You know it. 7. You hear a horse snort somewhere far off. 8. Your thumb finds a hammer. 9. Your heart stops. 10. You spin. He fires. And misses. You flinch so hard you nearly shoot the dirt, but your bullet finds his shoulder. He drops to one knee, shocked more than wounded. The crowd gasps. You stand, smoke curling from the barrel. And the town? Dead silent. The sheriff steps forward, hand raised. He looks at you, then at the preacher, then back at the wanted poster. Slowly, he folded in half. Tilted nose, he mutters, "Wrong guy." You lower the pistol. They let you walk. Not because they believe in you, but because you lived. Fringe tidbit, in some towns surviving a duel, fair and square, bought you a kind of immunity. A weird frontier respect. You proved you belonged, or at least that you wouldn't die easily. And out here, that's almost the same thing. You return to the livery, hands still shaking. The stable boy stares at you like you're a ghost. Maybe you are. You ride out of town slowly. Not chased, not cheered, just watched. And for the first time since you arrived, the wind doesn't bite. It whispers, like the West just decided to let you keep breathing. For now, you don't look back as you ride. Not because you're feeling triumphant, but because if you see one more face peeking out from behind a curtain, squinting to decide whether you're a hero, a villain, or a really stubborn mistake, you might turn the horse around and ride straight into a cactus out of spite. The sun's already climbing again, baking the trail ahead in a shimmer that dances just enough to make you doubt everything, including your own name. The horse plods steadily, rhythm like a lullaby made of hooves and dust. It's peaceful and unsettling. You have no plan, no money, no destination, no guarantee the next town won't be worse than perdition. But you have your life. That's something. You ride until the landscape changes. The prairie stretches flatter and wider, and the grass turns silver in the light. Birds circle high above, hawks or vultures, always hard to tell until it's too late. By midday, you spot it, a lonely outpost sitting beside the ruins of a telegraph line. A couple of shacks, a corral, and a crooked sign hanging from 2 posts, Dry Nail Junction. A man waves you down before you reach the well. You lost? He asks, eyeing you with suspicion and maybe a hint of envy. You look like someone who's been tested, and he doesn't want the same exam. No, you say, just between places. Then stay between, he mutters, walking away. You dismount to stretch your legs. Inside a tiny trading post, you barter one of your boots for a chunk of bread and a tin of dried apples. The owner doesn't ask your name, and you don't offer it. As you sit on the edge of the stoop, chewing something that tastes like old leather disguised as food, a little girl stares at you. "You got shot," she asks. You shake your head. "You gonna, maybe..." She nods solemnly, like that's fair. A gust of wind lifts the dust again, and from the edge of town, a figure steps out of the shade of the water tower. It's the gambler, from Perdition. He walks like a man who either just got rich or just lost everything. No middle ground. "Well, look at you," he says, tipping his hat. Still vertical. Barely. He pulls up a crate and sits beside you. Word travels fast. "Heard you took on the preacher." I flinched and got lucky. Sound about right. You eat in silence for a while. Then he says, "Most folks don't last long out here. They chase fortune, or run from something, or try to prove they're bigger than the dirt." You glance at your shredded coat, your one boot, your dirt-drenched everything. "How am I doing?" He grins. "You're still here." And then he says something you don't expect. "There's a rail job in Black Clay. 2 days ride north. Shoveling rock, guarding surveyors, watching for Apache raids. Hard work, honest-ish pay. You look at him. Why are you telling me? Because you didn't shoot anyone who didn't need shooting. And you kept that horse alive. The horse snorts behind you like it resents being part of your resume. You nod. I'll think about it. He tips his hat again. Don't think too long. Rail leaves people behind. He stands, walks back to his horse, and rides off with the wind. You sit a little longer, thinking. Then you get up, climb into the saddle, and head north. The trail ahead looks no different than the one behind. Same dry cracks, same endless sky, same soundtrack of hooves, wind, and the occasional far-off cry of something hunting or dying. But something shifted. You survived more than a day now. Not with ease, not clean, but still, you are here. The sun drifts lower now, long shadows creeping across the land like soft whispers. The heat fades into a gentle warmth, and the wind, once biting and bold, becomes a slow exhale over the empty plains. You ride on, your heartbeat steadier, your breath deeper. Behind you, the dust settles. The town of Perdition fades into memory, half real, half fever dream. Its crooked signs, its shouting preachers, its broken piano, and half-sincere whiskey all blur into the distance. Maybe it was never meant for someone like you. Maybe nowhere is. But you made it one more day. Out here, that's more than survival. It's a statement. The trail stretches ahead, bathed in the last golden light of the day. Somewhere, far off, coyotes call again. Not warnings now, but lullabies. The sky opens wide, 1,000 stars stretching overhead, blinking into view one by one, like someone carefully lighting lanterns across the ceiling of the world. You don't know what tomorrow holds. Another town, another mistake, another miracle, or maybe all three. But tonight, under this velvet sky, the wind cool on your skin, and the saddle rocking gently beneath you, you finally allow yourself to breathe. You are tired. You are filthy. And somehow you are still here. So rest easy now, drifter. The West isn't finished with you yet. But for tonight, you've earned the quiet.